All right, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon.
Waalaikumsalam.
Right. So for today, I'll try to finish chapter 1 ataupun topic 1. Let me see. Share for a while. Okay, so for topic number 1, it is all about the introduction for financial management. And I will also include the parts of financial market as well. By the way, dengar tak? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sure. Right. Okay, I'll try, untuk hari ni, I will not be long actually, yes, but I have something going on at 3, so I'll try to finish up all of this topic number 1 by 3 lah, latest. And this topic number 1, like I said earlier, last week, it is all about theory. There's no calculation, there's no method or techniques lah, basically. So here in topic number 1, we have 4 subtopics. First one is about financial markets and also the types of business organization. Okay, why people set up companies, okay, the goals of a firm, the functions of financial manager, because we are talking about financial management. So basically there's a function for this, which is the financial manager. Okay, there's an individual ataupun there's a team that will work on this financial management. Yeah. And lastly, the risk and return relationship. So this risk and return, again, we will discuss further in details later on in certain topics. I think topic number 4 or 5 macam tu. Okay, so first of all, what is finance? Okay, what is finance and what is the definition of finance? So finance here can be defined as the art and science of managing money. Okay, so when we talk about managing money, we're not only looking at when we have the money. Okay, maknanya we just ataupun we don't manage money when we have it. Okay, we are actually managing it when we don't have the money as well. Okay, so this is where the concept dalam financial management lah, as an not as an individual, but as a business. Okay, as a business, but kita nak tengok dekat business organisation kat sini. So businesses may have two possible situations. Okay, if they have the money, okay, atau when they have excess of money, okay, kita panggil dia the position. Macam mana tulis let me see. Okay, as a business business kat sini. So there's a two situations. So first, when they are surplus. Okay, when they have excess of funds. Okay, they are in the surplus position. By the way, SUR, surplus. And at the same time, okay, the businesses also exposed when they have lack of cash or lack of money. This is where in the position of deficit. Okay, deficit. So kalau surplus ni maknanya dia ada excess. Sinilah tulis excess. Excess. Okay. Here deficit means they have shortages. Okay, they should have shortage of funds. So both situations, the businesses need to react atau they need to make decisions. Okay, so when they have surplus or excess of money, all right, so what they do, they have to, ataupun they need to invest. Okay, they need to put out their money to somewhere profitable to them. Okay, so that's one side of managing money. Okay, when they have surplus, they need to invest in order to get more money. At the same time, ataupun at a different time maybe, when they have shortage of cash ataupun shortage of money in the deficit positions, they need to think of how to borrow money. Okay, so the situation here, tulis kat bawah sebab tak muat kat sini. If they have surplus, okay, what they need to do, they have to invest. Okay, ataupun they need to invest in order to get more money. Whereas kalau dia deficit, okay, what they need to do, they have to borrow. They have to borrow money. So this decision making involving investing ataupun borrowing is basically the whole thing about art and science of managing money. Okay, so when I said about managing money, it's not only about when they have surplus. Sometimes when the company have deficit positions, they need to arrange for borrowings. Okay, borrow ni pinjam lah, pinjam. Kalau invest ni dia laburkan duit dia. Whereas kalau deficit, they have to borrow. Okay, so this includes obtaining, okay, and allocate financial resources effectively and efficiently. So obtaining here refers to borrowing. Okay, allocate ni maknanya dia kena invest somewhere lah. Okay, they have certain amount of money, excess, katakanlah one company have excess of 1 million ringgit. So they need to allocate accordingly. Okay, in order to get the best possible return. So that's why dia tulis kat sini, effectively and also efficiently. Okay, so on top of this managing money, okay, obviously the financial management ataupun the finance basically has to integrate with other department as well. As a company, as an organization, I'm not sure whether you have exposed to, you know, the types of departments in a business ataupun in a company. Okay, besides finance, obviously finance is one of the most important department, I can say, is because they are involving money. But obviously there are some other departments yang quite important. For example, here like marketing departments who will promote the products and also services. And those who involved with operations, for example. Okay, so finance needs to integrate with those other marketing and also operations, because this marketing and operations, for example, may have costs. Okay, in order to operate, they need costs. So obviously they can go back to finance department lah, okay, to ask for budget, for example. Okay, kita nak promote new products, we need certain amount of money to promote our products, either using the traditional platforms ataupun maybe using a new digital platforms, for example. So all of those requires money. Okay, somehow they akan integrate balik lah dengan finance, right? And obviously finance involved heavily in decision makings. Okay, the whole thing that you will learn throughout the semester nanti, mostly about decision making. Okay, and they revolve around these two elements. Okay, either investment or at the end of the day borrowings. Okay, for example here, new products, new assets. This is all about investment. Okay, when we talk about investment, it's not only about melabur, for I don't know, share markets, unit trust saja. For companies, when we talk about investment, it can involve introducing new products to the market. Bila kita introduce new products, obviously they need money, okay, to push for marketing, for example, for R&D, research and design. So all of those requires money. Okay, purchasing new assets. Okay, you will learn this nanti dalam capital budgeting, for example. So those involve investing as well. And as I said tadi lah, all of this yang bawah ni, borrowings, issue stock and issue debts, this is all about to borrow money when they are deficit. So yang atas ni, when they are surplus. So yang kat bawah ni, when they have deficits. Okay, so that's the thing that you need to put in your mind. Okay, nampak macam general, tapi kita akan go through in details according to the topics later on. Okay, tapi in general, you just need to imagine the two situations that are really important. When the company have excess money, okay, what they need to do with that money, takkan kita nak keep everything in cash. Okay, just remember, cash is not efficient. Okay, cash will not give you any returns. Okay, you have 100,000 in your hand right now. Tomorrow it will be 100,000 lagi. Okay, next month it will be still 100,000. Okay, but if you invest that money, even for 1 month, 100,000 tu, in let's say as simple as fixed deposits, you will get some returns. Okay, so that's investment. At the same time, you need to remember companies also may face shortages of funds, either short-term ataupun long-term basis. So sometimes they need to borrow. Okay, so both akan melalui proses decision making. So investment, obviously we will try to invest at the highest possible returns as possible. Whereas when we talk about borrowings, obviously we will try to borrow as cheap as possible, okay, at the lowest cost as possible. So that will be the decision making that we go through throughout the semester nanti lah. Okay. So finance is concerned with the process, okay, I mentioned earlier, the institutions, okay, including banks, for example, okay, or any other institutions related to fundings ataupun investment, and also financial markets. Okay, later on I can explain to you what kind of markets we have, and also the instruments. Okay, basically when we talk about instrument, this is actually products. Okay, financial products that we have. For example, when we talk about banks, okay, banks, obviously ada banyak products in banks. If you have money, you want to keep your money in the bank, kita ada savings account, for example. Okay, when we talk about deposits lah, let's see kat sini, deposits. If you have access, you akan deposit dalam bank. You have savings account. You have current accounts. All of those are instruments. Okay, but if you want to borrow, you borrow usually in the form of loans, kan? Loans. So what kind of loans? You have hire purchase, for example. Hire purchase is when you want to purchase a car. The companies also needs to borrow money to purchase cars for their businesses lah. Okay, hire purchase, or they can use business loan. Okay, so those are also considered as instruments. Okay, so finance also involved in this. Okay, involved in this institutions, the markets, and also instruments. The selection. Okay, banks kat Malaysia, we have a lot of banks in the country. Okay, kita nak local banks ke, international banks ke. Okay, and as I said tadi lah, the instruments. So a lot of decisions needs to be done before we finalize our selection. And for you guys yang mungkin end up, okay, macam not everyone related to the finance punya course pun sekarang ataupun program nowadays. Like you guys, memang yang ada yang AE14, if I can recall lah, ada yang AE14, ada yang non-financial services pun. Okay, so most likely you will not end up in finance punya field. So why do you need to learn finance at the first place? So for those who work, we will work in non-financial jobs. Okay, contoh apa lah, ada yang kerja human resource, ada yang ambil programs like human resource, ada yang even non-business related. Okay, you will have benefits of learning finance ni for you to discuss, okay, or interact with finance people in your company later in the future. Okay, because you now understand, okay, the process, the concepts, and also the procedures. Okay, so that's another important thing why you have to learn finance, especially for those who will work in the future in non-financial jobs. Okay, or else kalau tak nanti you akan, either you blank, tak sure apa benda the finance people talk about, or you cannot argue, okay, with facts and figures, okay. Sebab you dah belajar benda ni, then you can argue some questions related to their decisions, right? Okay, so in Malaysia, when we talk about financial system lah, this is just a bit lah, kalau nak detail nanti agak lama. When we talk about financial system, okay, the financial system in the country will split into two different categories. Kat sini dulu lah, financial system. Okay, financial system. So this financial system, dia akan split kepada dua. We have financial markets. Saya letak kat sini dulu lah, financial markets. And this side we have financial institutions lah. Okay, that's why ada dua ni kategori. Cuma financial institution dia letak first and then financial market second. Okay, so and we have two different categories here. Who manage ataupun who govern these particular categories are two different entities. Okay, ada dua company ataupun dua organisation that manage ataupun I can say supervise ataupun govern these kind of markets. So for financial institutions, we have Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, Bank Negara Malaysia, who govern the financial institution. So what kind of financial institution? Termasuklah banks, as you all know, banks. the insurance companies, takaful operators, what else under the financial institutions? Okay, I repeat. Commercial banks, we have investment banks, we have insurance and takaful, have development finance. Two among important institutions lah. Whereas for financial market, dia punya governance would be Securities Commission, SC. Okay. And bawah dia ada banyak lagi markets lah. So let's look at this side first. Yang ni I letak kat sini juga number one. The financial institutions who governed by bank negara. These financial institutions considered as intermediary. When we talk about intermediary, they are considered as middleman. Orang tengah. Okay. They are middlemen, intermediary between two parties. Okay. We have here, okay, kalau I boleh draw the relationship lah. I letak kat tengah ni FIs, financial institutions kat tengah. Okay, because they are intermediary. So remember the concept of surplus and deficit earlier I mentioned. Okay, so those who have surplus, what they do, okay, they will deposit. Okay, yang surplus. For those yang surplus, they will deposit money to the bank. For example, FI ni salah satu contohnya is banks lah. Okay, they will deposit into the bank. Right. And at the same time, the bank here receive deposits tadi kan from the surplus parties. They will channel this money. Okay, dia akan bagi duit ni in a form of borrowings ataupun in short I tulis loan je lah kat sini loans. So who are those people yang require loans? Those with deficit. Okay, deficit. Okay, remember just now I mentioned pasal, sorry ni tadi, surplus and deficit So we can use this this concept in this middleman ataupun intermediary function of financial institutions, whereby they are the middleman. Imagine they as a middleman, receive deposits from surplus parties, and these surplus parties can be any of these. Dia boleh individual like us macam kita. I think every one of us ada savings account dekat bank. Okay, bila you masuk UPSI masa tu mesti you kena buka account at least bank Islam kalau tak salah. You have to open the savings account and they have to put money inside there, contohnya. Okay, ataupun for those yang working, right, you will receive your salary in savings account. So dia akan masuk dalam ni lah, dalam deposits. Okay, and financial institution can use that money. Okay, and it's not only individual, businesses also will open up deposit accounts. Okay, macam saya cakap tadi lah. Deposit account, dia boleh savings account, current account, ada FD, fixed deposit for example. So, dia akan deposit dalam banks. Right? And as I said, financial institutions, for example banks, can utilize that money. They pool the money, and that money, a portion of it, they akan give out loans to the deficit units. So, and these deficit units can be from the same people, can be from individuals, can be from businesses, and can be from governments as well. Okay, government pun dia boleh jadi depositor, at the same time dia boleh pinjam juga. Okay, when they have problems with their cash flows, they can borrow money. Government also can borrow. Okay, adalah cara dia borrow macam mana. They issue new instruments and whatnot. Okay, I will not talk to details about that lah. Okay, sama juga lah individuals. Those who are surplus, they will deposit in the bank account. But individuals yang have deficit, okay, nak beli rumah contohnya, cash tak cukup, they will borrow money from the same institutions. Okay, so that's the function of financial institutions lah, as an intermediary and meeting place between deposits, between the surplus and deficit units. Okay, so that's the function. And how banks makes money? Okay, out of this, dia jadi orang tengah kan. So obviously they will make money. Okay, dia akan buat duit. How? So obviously, dia dapat duit from surplus parties and then dia akan channel to the deficit units. So dia akan promise to pay when they receive deposits ni tadi, they have to pay to the surplus parties ni. Okay, bila kita simpan duit dalam bank, the bank will pay us dividends ataupun some interest maybe. Okay, dia akan pay back to us lah from the deposit that we make. Okay, and usually, okay, these deposit rates will be cheap, very cheap. Okay, if you keep your money in savings accounts, the returns usually less than 1%, but okay, not even 1% returns. If savings account. Kalau current account lagi, sometimes tak ada returns, no returns at all, zero. Okay, kalau FD, fixed deposits, yes, maybe around 3 to 4%. Okay, so that's the amount of rates ataupun amount of returns that need to give back to the depositors. Okay, so I letak sini lah, range dia around 1 to 3%, for example, the rates. Okay, so this is the cost. Dia dapat duit daripada depositors, and they have to pay back around this much, 1 to 3% returns. Okay, depending on the products ataupun depending on the instruments. Okay, however, they will charge to those yang pinjam. Takkan dia bagi pinjam free kan? Obviously, they will charge either interest ataupun profits to the deficit units, to the borrowers. Okay, and the charges, okay, range. Dia bukan fixed lah. Some mungkin, for example, for car loans, maybe 3%. Maybe. For housing loans, maybe 4%. Okay. For personal loan, maybe 6%. Okay. Credit cards, 18%, for example. So you can see the charges that they make to the to the borrowers is much higher than the amount that they have to pay to the depositors. So the difference of rates dari amount yang dia kena bayar balik kepada ataupun the amount yang they gain from deficit units and the amount that they have to pay back to depositors, the difference tu, that's the profits to the bank. Okay. Kita take extreme lah ataupun average, maybe average lah. So 1 to 3 maybe kita ambil tengah-tengah 2%. So maknanya dia hanya perlu bayar around 2% to depositors. Tapi dia boleh gain about to 6% maybe, katakanlah 6% from borrowers. So 6 tolak 2 about 4%, which is sebenarnya more than 4% sepatutnya lah. This is just an average returns of banks. So that's why if banks manage properly, the banks tak sepatutnya bankrupt. Okay, bank cannot be bankrupt unless they don't have effective ataupun efficient management, right? So that's why kalau you tengok the number one bank in the country, Maybank for example, their profits billions, bukan million lagi tau, billions, more than 1 billion profit. When we talk about profit, maksudnya dia dah tolak tax. Dia dah tolak all the expenses and obviously dia tolak tax. Okay, they still earn billions, right? So that's why, if the bank managed properly, they shouldn't go bankrupt. Okay, so that's the one part of financial institution under financial system. Financial institution, example tadi I bagi, it can be banks, commercial banks. Yang you nampak lah ni bank, CIMB, public bank, and then we have investment bank. Okay, the name of the bank tu ada perkataan investment dalam dia. Contoh macam Maybank Investment, Public Investment, okay, CIMB Investments, and Islamic banks, okay, which is similar like commercial bank, cuma dia apply the concept of Islamic kat situ. And insurance and takaful companies, right? So the second part is the financial markets. Okay, the financial markets. Technically, the financial market behave ataupun the functions is quite similar like financial institution. They are actually middlemen as well. Okay, so meaning they will be a joining ataupun there will be a meeting place between the surplus and the deficit units. Okay, akan ada yang surplus which is the one yang akan pump in the money, whereas ada yang jadi deficit units who will require funding from these markets. So under the financial markets, okay, under the financial markets, kat sini dia ada dua ya, tapi kalau ikutkan we have 4 types of financial market, but here I just focus on two key financial markets, which is the money market and the capital market. Okay, so the key difference between the two markets here, money market involved in short term, okay, whereas capital market involved in a long term securities. Okay, so under money markets, mostly melibatkan debt and marketable securities lah. Okay, debt and marketable securities. Whereas for capital market involve long term, which is we have bonds and we have stocks. So this is debt, hutang, and this is equity, stocks. Okay, so that's the main thing lah for financial markets. So why we have these two markets? Again, the same thing. We will have two parties, the surplus and the deficit. Okay, cuma dalam money market kita tak panggil dia depositors lah. Okay, so under the money or capital market, we still have surplus, we still have deficit. Okay, cuma the transaction is not depositors and borrowers anymore. This is more on buyer and seller. Okay, because we are talking about instruments, okay, ataupun securities ni. So these securities is basically financial certificates. Okay, I will not talk into detail lagi lah what is financial certificate. You just imagine lah, the transaction involved is actually by buying and selling of certificates. So for those yang deficit, maknanya if you remember the deficit, meaning they have shortage of cash, what they have to do, they have to sell securities. Okay, they have to sell. So imagine macam ni lah. Mesti ada paper. Okay, imagine this is a piece of paper ataupun a piece of certificate. Okay, and these certificates will be sold by my company. My company needs money, for example. Okay, in order to get money, kalau I pergi financial institution tadi, I go to the bank and request for loans. Tapi when we talk about financial markets, I cannot get loans kat situ. What I need to do is to raise funds by selling certificates. I can jual certificates ni. And these certificates akan specify. For example, I ambil paling mudah bond lah, bonds. Okay, bonds tu ada kat mana? Kat capital market. Okay, dalam certificate bonds ni, this will specify, okay, this certificate will pay the buyer of this certificate a certain amount of money, okay, with a certain rates of return and the duration ataupun the maturity. Let's say, okay, this certificate worth 10,000 ringgit. Okay, and this certificate will pay you 10% returns for 5 years, for example. Okay, and then I try to sell this certificate to those yang surplus. Surplus, remember, surplus ni dia ada duit yang extra. So if they interested ataupun they agree with my terms and conditions of my certificate, so dia akan beli. So surplus will buy. They will buy these securities. So the money exchange kan, I sell securities, I receive money. So in a way, I macam pinjam daripada dia sebenarnya. I receive the fund from this transaction, and the surplus party tadi, then we get this certificate, and in return they pay me the cash lah. And I have to pay back, okay, according to the terms and conditions. Okay, so that's how it happens in the financial markets lah. So financial markets slightly different. Okay, but that's the way it is lah. Buying and selling of securities. Itu satu contoh lah I bagi. Okay, but at the end of the day, the nature of requirement tu still the same. Okay, dia ada dua pihak yang sama, which is those with surplus try to get into the financial markets, try to invest. Okay, bila dia beli instruments ni, basically they invest with the intention to get returns. Remember dalam certificate tu tuliskan berapa return dia. That's one thing. And for the deficit parties, they go into the financial markets with the intention to get funding. How? By selling securities. Bila dia jual securities tu, people buy from them kan, and people pay money. And that is the fund that they will get from the financial markets. Okay, so like I said lah, still as a middleman, financial markets ni, cuma the nature is not deposit, dia bukan simpan ataupun pinjaman, it's more on buying and selling of securities. Okay, and usually when we compare between these two, number one and number two here, financial institution and financial markets, the value of transactions. So, okay, for financial institution, mungkin value dia tak sebesar in financial markets. But financial markets may be involved in millions of ringgit. Okay, kalau kat sini maybe thousands only. So that's why companies have options. If company have issues with borrowings ataupun they need money, they can go to the bank under financial institutions. Okay, but usually the amount is not that big and the loans punya rates usually more expensive. Okay, or alternatively, they can go to the financial markets, sell instruments, sell securities, in order to get the same amount of money, and usually at a cheaper price. Okay, cheaper rates. Okay, so that's are the decision that they have to make lah. Either to go to the bank ataupun go to the financial markets. So dia ada pros and cons masing-masing lah. Okay. So under these financial markets, we have two types of markets juga. Okay, not to confuse dengan money and also capital market tadi. So money, as I said, involve short term. So when I set short term ni, usually the duration is less than 1 year. Okay, less than 1 year. When we talk about long term ni, dia punya duration usually more than 1 year lah. 1 year. Okay, more than 1 year. Anything more than 1 year, usually under capital markets. Anything short, 6 months, 9 months, they will transact in money markets. Okay, in the form of marketable securities. Okay, macam bonds for example, dia punya duration bonds ni memang lama 5 to 30 years maybe, even sometimes up to 40 years. Obviously they fit the bill of 1 year, more than 1 year. Stocks even, they don't have maturity. Okay, so yeah, that's capital market. So both markets, money and capital, have two types of market lah kita panggil. We have the primary and secondary. So to differentiate between the two, bila tengok primary, it refers to new issuance. Okay, new issues ataupun issuance. When the instruments being sold for the very first time, dipanggil, dia akan jual in the primary market. Okay, but once dia dah jual to the investor, okay, when the investor wants to sell to others, okay, they have to sell it in the secondary market. Just remember secondary ni as second-hand market. Okay, it's not new anymore. Contohnya macam ni lah company A, okay, dia jual instruments dia to investor A. Okay, company A sell instruments to investor A. So this transaction happens in primary market. Okay, company A dia jual very first time. Okay, hari ni katakan 15 of March, they launch new instruments to the market. And investor A ada duit, dia beli from company A. And this happened in the primary market. Let's say after 6 months, okay, this investor A needs money. Okay, so how do you want to get the money? Dia tak boleh jual balik kepada company A sebab dia ada maturity lah kasit. Selalunya kalau capital market tadi contoh more than 1 year. But now it's just 6 months tapi this investor A needs money. Okay, kalau you deposit dekat bank, you boleh withdraw anytime kan. But for financial market, you cannot sell back to company A before maturity. Tak boleh. So how to get liquid ataupun how to get your money back? Okay, instead of selling to company A yang issue tadi, you have to sell to other investors. So you can jual kepada investor yang lain. For example, investor B, a second person kat sini. So this transaction, investor A to investor B, happens in secondary. Okay, second hand market. Sama macam you beli barang kot. You beli from department store. Tiba lepas pakai 6 bulan, you need money. Okay, you have to sell to others. You jual dekat Mudah, you jual dekat I don't know what kind of platform yang ada. Okay, and that happens in the secondary market, contohnya lah. So similar like financial markets. Okay, remember like that way lah. Primary when new issuance, for secondary market is for second hand. Okay, so why we have this second hand market ataupun secondary market? As I said tadi lah, to increase liquidity so that if you invest today and you need money in the future, you can liquidate. Okay, so that you tak stuck lah. You tak perlulah tunggu sampai mature, for example. So it will increase liquidity. I can generate pricing information Okay, sebab this is all based on supply and demand lah. Supply and demand, I think you dah dengar pasal konsep ekonomi ni supply and demand. So when the supply is high and the demand is low, contohnya, so it will bring down the price sebab benda banyak, supply is high tapi demand tak ada. Obviously the price of that particular instruments will drop, and vice versa kalau supply is low but demand is high, okay, and it will shoot up the price, okay, because of the high demand tapi supply in the market kurang. Okay, so they will generate pricing information lah when we have these secondary markets based on supply and demand. And obviously the corporate performance, okay, barometer. So bila performance company is good, obviously I go back to supply and demand. So the demand will be high sebab the performance is good. So contohnya kalau kat Malaysia tak ada, nak bagi contoh, kalau kat overseas, for example, Apple, okay, the performance of their sales of their products bagus, obviously the demand for that shares of the company will increase as well. So that will be the barometer for the performance of the company. Right, so that's why they have secondary market again. And all of this happened, okay, in the stock exchange market. Kita tak ada kena-mena sebenarnya one two. Stock exchange ni is just a platform ataupun a place. Kalau kat Malaysia, this stock exchange, we have Bursa. Bursa Malaysia. Okay, here selalunya kita panggil dia DE Exchange. Tempat berlakunya urus niaga. Okay, for either can be any of these lah. It can be bonds, it can be stocks. Sebab dalam Bursa Malaysia dia ada banyak pecahan dia. Dia ada equities, dia ada bonds, dia ada derivatives. Okay, I will not go into detail lah. Okay, so Bursa Malaysia ni ada banyak subsidiary dia. Okay, that will involve a lot of instruments. Okay, a lot of instruments. You kalau ada soalan tanya je, kalau tak I cerita je ni. Tengok dah nak bertiga dah. Baru slide number 6. So that's one part, the financial markets. So if you recap a little, what is finance, as you recall, is the art and science of managing money. And when I said managing money, it's all relates between the surplus and deficit. Just remember that way. Okay, certain points, the business may have excess funds. At certain point, they may have shortage of funds. Both requires decision making. Okay, so kalau dia ada excess, okay, they need to decide where to invest. Okay, kat mana nak invest, dia boleh pergi financial markets ni. Okay, and their role when they go into financial market as deficit, as a surplus, kalau you ingat balik I tulis tadi, kalau surplus, they are the one who will buy all the instruments. Sebab dia ada duit lebih kan, dia beli lah. Okay, why they buy these securities? Because these securities promise returns. Okay, sebab kenapa kita invest, kita nak dapat returns in the future. Okay, so their role as a buyer of securities. At the same time, company may have certain point lah, deficit. Okay, they will go into the same markets. Okay, what they do, instead of buying, they sell securities. Okay, different role kat sini but the same parties. Can be individual businesses and government. But for us, kita punya fokus kat sini lah, we are focusing on business. Not even individuals sebab this is not personal finance. Kita discuss pasal financial management ataupun corporate punya finance. So we are looking from businesses point of view. Okay, so all our decisions yang kita akan buat later on semua melibatkan companies ataupun businesses. So now we look at the second part, which is the business organization. Okay, business organization. So this one I go very quick. The legal forms of business organizations. So here, in short, we have three types of legal forms. Kita ada sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporations. Okay, so sole proprietorship, the word sole here means satu, one, individual ataupun tunggal, pemilikan tunggal, alright, owned by one person only. Okay, one person only, with no sharings whatsoever. Okay, when I said one person, memang one person dia tak share. So that's sole proprietorships. So what's the benefit of this legal forms? It's very easy to set up, right? And very cheap. Okay, very cheap to set up. Okay. Apa tak ingat ringgit RM25 just to open to get the license. Okay, and this one person akan operates, mungkin boleh hire pekerja, mungkin boleh, tak ada masalah, but everything is based on his or her own profit lah in order to get profits. Okay, similarly, okay, dia punya konsep ataupun dia punya approach similar like the second legal forms, which is partnerships. However, the very different aspect of this setup would be they owned by 2 or more people. Kalau tadi we had 1 person, for partnerships is owned by 2, at least 2 or more people. And the same thing lah, operated for profit. Okay, it's quite easy juga to set up. Okay, but the agreement lah, agreement between parties tu je lah yang penting. Okay, the agreement between the shareholders, not shareholder, between the partners. Need to have formal agreement lah, either in written, selalunya written lah. Kalau nak gunakan oral ni susah sikit. Cakap mulut kan. So usually to make things clear, it's best to have formal agreements. Okay, formal agreements in the form of written agreement. Bertulis, perjanjian bertulis, written agreements. Okay, so it's also quite cheap, tapi ada disadvantages ya. Okay, later I explain. The third one is corporation, companies. Here in Malaysia, we have private limited and public limited. So kalau private limited ni, kalau you perasan, the one with Sendirian Berhad. Okay, kalau public limited ni is Berhad company. Okay, so adalah dia punya legal issues with both. Okay, Sendirian Berhad and Berhad. So this legal entity created either by state. When we talk about state, it means government lah. It can be from the government. And other, obviously some positives and negatives of this. Okay, in short, ni dia punya apa advantages and disadvantages. Nanti you baca lah. I just nak maybe focus on a few. Advantages tadi macam cakap lah. Low cost, very easy to set up. Independence sebab you buat seorang. Okay. However, the most important weakness untuk sole proprietorship, in fact sama je macam partnership, is this part. The unlimited liability, sama je. So what are unlimited liability? So when we talk about unlimited liability, this is the terms. Total wealth can be taken into satisfy debt. So maknanya, if this setup, sole proprietorship ataupun partnerships, let's say when they set up the company, they invest 100,000. Okay. Yeah, cost apa investment ataupun capital capital. Okay, the capital is 100,000. Once they run their business, tiba-tiba after a few years, dia ada hutang 200,000. Okay, they invest 100,000 tapi dia punya debt naik kepada 200,000. So in order to fulfill, to pay this debt, they have to take their own wealth untuk bayar hutang ni, this 200,000. So meaning they have to take out their own money in order to satisfy this debt. Okay, so that's why dipanggil unlimited. Walaupun you invest 100,000, tapi your liability is unlimited. You kena bayar lebih daripada 100,000. According to whatever amount of debt you have. That's why dipanggil unlimited. But for corporations, okay, the advantage dia, sebab kalau ni disadvantages, but corporation dia punya advantage is dia limited liability. Okay, limited liability. So, bila dia invest 100,000 dalam company ni, so kalau company ni, you know, losing money more than 100,000, let's say 200,000 juga, so dia punya kerugian will limited to this 100,000 sahaja. Even the company have more debts, they don't have to pay the additional. Okay, sebab dia ada limited liability. Only the company have to fulfill these debts. Okay, so that's among others lah. Okay, goals of a firm. I nak shortcut kat sini. Is it why company set up goals? Set up company. Goals adakah untuk maximize profits? Okay, the short answer is no. Okay, because it's not enough. Okay, baca kat sini ya. Profit maximization alone is not enough. Dia bukan kata totally wrong it's not enough. Because usually when we talk about maximization profit, it's all about short term. Okay, short term. So what is the best goal? Okay, which is this one sebenarnya. To maximize shareholders' wealth. This will be the ultimate goal of company. Okay, the primary goal is to increase shareholders' wealth. How to increase the shareholders' wealth is by trying to, sebab bila kita cerita pasal business, dia yang especially yang listed companies lah, they have share price. So their goal is basically to trying to increase the share price as high as possible, because when the share price is high, automatically the wealth of the shareholders akan increase. Okay, katakanlah I as a shareholder, I ada 100,000 units of shares. Okay, kalau masa dia baru launch, harga dia RM1. RM1. So technically I will have RM 100,000 worth of wealth for this company. But after a year, the price of the share will increase, katakan increase to 150, RM150. My number of units still remain the same, 100,000. So at the end of the first year, my wealth increased from 100,000 to 100 times 150, 150, 150,000. Okay, I richer by 50,000. How I get richer? By this share price increase from RM1 to 150. Okay, and that's our goal lah. Our goal is to make sure this price is always going up. How to make this price to goes up every year, for example, is by producing good products, for example. Saya tak ingat stock Apple, contohnya kalau company in overseas, in US, for example, companies like Apple, like Amazon, okay, they started very cheap, but now the price goes to hundreds per unit. So imagine lah, kalau dulu $1, now $100, so dah berapa persen increase tu kan. So that's the goal of the firm, to maximize the shareholders' wealth. How? By increasing the price. Okay. So the rest nanti baca lah the other goals kat sini, corporate governance and social responsibility. Okay, tak sempat lah I have to go sebenarnya. So the rest ni I think is self-explanatory. I dah cerita some of it tadi. Okay, macam contohnya financial manager is basically ada dua reason jugalah. Mostly is about investment. Okay, when they have surplus, and financing decisions when they are deficits, right? Dealing with financial markets and dividend policy. Nanti ada satu topik tu memang cerita pasal dividend je, because when we have shareholders in the company, we have to pay dividend to shareholders. Okay, so how much money we have to pay to the shareholders, this depends on the financial manager's decision. Okay, so policy of companies different from one to another. Okay, and obviously risk management. And lastly, the risk and return. Okay, so I think you pernah dengar the concept of high risk, high return, low risk, low return. So like I said, the risk and return ni can be discussed ataupun will be discussed in a certain topic later in the future, in how to measure the returns and how to measure the risk. So returns usually kita calculate by kita panggil dia expected returns. Whereas the risk kita measure guna standard deviation, among others kita boleh measure using variance as well. Okay, and also beta. Ada banyak lah measurements of risk. Okay, so when you invest in certain yang with high standard deviation, meaning the higher the risk of the investment. So when we talk about high risk investment, there's a possibility of amount yang you borrow tu ataupun amount you invest tu you tak dapat balik. A simple example, you ada 100,000, you keep in savings account, for example. Savings account have a very low standard deviation, very low risk. You put 100,000 in the bank account, tomorrow you will see still 100,000 intact. But if you put 100,000 in share markets, Hari ni letak 100,000, harga RM1. Tomorrow tinggal 90 sen. So dia dah cut down your values from 100,000 down to 90,000 je contoh. So 10,000 shift out from the values in one night, for example. So that kind of investment akan ada high standard deviation. Okay, ada banyak kat sini. Hopefully you can read. Kat sini. So kat sini lah. Usually untuk for example apa tadi, savings akan ada kat sini lah, saving very low. Okay, tapi yang high return kat sini macam stock ada kat sini lah, the high returns. Okay, but obviously with a high tendency of loss as well. So the difference ni will be the risk premium yang you akan ambil in order to get more lah. In order to get more, you have to take higher risk. Okay, and obviously people will have different ni lah, different risk appetite we call it. Sama ada you ada high risk taker ataupun try to avoid risk. Okay, so with that I have to end topic number 1 today. Okay, so for topic 1 ni sebenarnya ada satu task nak bagi. So I will put up the question, task 1 tu, dalam my guru as an first task that you need to do. I need you to do something very simple. Tak sempat nak explain pun. Okay, tak apa. Nanti I post dekat dalam tu, dalam my guru. So if you have any question, just let me know. Okay, if you have question, just let me know. And sorry, I have to cut short our meeting today because I have proposal defense sebenarnya with postgraduates. So inshallah I see you guys next week with topic number 2. Okay, so topic number 2 memang akan ada calculations. But if you're not sure about topic number 1, we can revisit balik lah in our next meeting. Alright, so I'm sorry I have to end this now. Dah lambat dah ni. So sorry again, and inshallah see you guys next week. Right, bye for now.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Doctor.
Alright, so anything just let me know lah.
Thank you, Doctor.
I have
Thank
to
you, Doctor.
leave now. Alright, thanks.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.